that day coming out of Russian Major League and the European Open clash. So let's actually take a look at a bit more detail, which is our map. As you've seen, this map, or usually these maps, have a big influence on how teams play, and that's a Villa for Team Empire. They had the choice, go to Oregon or to Villa, and they chose Villa. Des, I know you're severely disappointed that Oregon isn't in play right now, but why do you think, after both of you having casted EOC, that Villa is the one to go for?
In my mind, between these two teams, you can look back at the history and the stats of them both playing Villa, but I think the big thing comes back to me is the maps that they played on so far this season. And looking at Empire, the last two games have been Coastline and Consulate, a loss and a draw. It hasn't gone too well for them. So I think on their side, going over to a map that is more focused on being able to play strategically a little bit slower might come back to help them. My biggest fear is if they go onto the defensive side to kick things off against G2, they were very, very slow at snapping back against the aggression coming out of G2, and G2 just ran them over in quite a few rounds. So here today, we're going to have to see them being willing to roam. Maybe that's why they've gone to such a large map. But again, it's Navi you're against here, and I'm just worried about what Navi can do.
What is it? Navi played against Rogue on Clubhouse in the last Playday hap, and Clubhouse, if anything, is very similar to how Villa is, a very technical map where you have to have certain level of map control before you proceed to opening up, points of entry into a site. And it showed that Navi were definitely not prepared to go up against Rogue and on that map. How is it today on Villa versus Empire?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see what it was actually going to be, what's going to be coming of Navi. Like, how are they going to be able to fight against this Empire? Of course, Empire not in its best state. Rogue, on the other hand, is kind of leveling up as we go throughout this tournament. So it's kind of logical to say that Rogue wasn't such a good form, and Navi wasn't quite a bad one. So let's hope that Navi can pick up their form again so they can actually show what they have, especially on this map. Because as you say, it's very similar to Clubhouse. You need these precise second executes to come in. You need to pincer from two sides at the same time. Let's hope they can do it today.
Something that they should be comfortable with. We saw their plays on Oregon in day one versus Secret, bringing out that Kali as well when necessary. Operator bans, I definitely expect a Thatcher to be out of there. Definitely kind of put that in your head. But the big question for me is on the Maverick. Unsure of where that is going to be. I don't know where that stands on you guys.
It's kind of a mix, right? Some teams like to ban away the Mav and Thatcher combo, but on this map, I think you can get away with banning away things like a Hibana. Normally, because this map requires you to be opening things up from distance, a lot of that floor is soft. If you have a C4 player down below, they are going to destroy you if you're on a Maverick or a Thermite. So I'm expecting maybe more of a Hibana ban, but time will tell. Don't forget, of course, Doki's been playing that an awful lot. We saw him on Thermite the other day. Didn't go so well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if we're going to have an Iana Lion combination. We've seen it in other maps, even Dokebi pulled out here and there. So first of all, let's see at what people think about this matchup. You can vote on all of these games and go on an R6 Esports EU. That's the account specifically for all of this. 56% to Empire, 7% for a draw. Navi at a 37%. Again, vote it. Go vote. Go on Twitter right now. You guys always like to tell us what you think about these matches. This is the place to go. Guys, quickly, very quickly, scoreline, Des?
I'm with the 7%, 6-6.
Hap?
I think if Navi can retake their form, they will take it.
All right, casters, all on to you. It's Navi Empire on Villa.
Hello, guys, and welcome back. Thank you, Milosh. I am super keen for this one, Gio. I know how much you like watching Empire, so I feel like I know the guys were kind of saying, oh, it could go either way. Des was thinking the draw. I think I know where your heart lies.
My heart certainly lies with Team Empire, but we all know that Villa is not necessarily known for being their best map. So actually, Des might have kind of the right idea. I think it really depends on what it comes down to in terms of, we've got to have a look at these operator bans first, because you have to remember, of course, Team Empire so far, they haven't faced a Thatcher ban at all in the EU League yet. And if this ends up coming out here at Villa, well, that could kind of hinder Cypher, who had a very, very good game in the third play day, because he's always been taking on that role. You also have to look at some of these other players who are needing to be enabled a little bit more. Obviously, Joystick and Dan didn't have the best game last time. And Doki, they mentioned at the start, also needs to kind of have a fire lit under him a little bit. So there are many different facets here. But Maverick is going to be the first to go.
And that does beg the question of whether we'll see Empire ban out the Thatcher. I'm going to go with no, because it's, as you said, not a common ban for them. They like playing with it when it's in there. So this might be one of those rare games where we actually get to see Thatcher make it through the ban phase. What do you reckon, Empire? Indeed it is. So instead we have 2 out of the 3 hard breaches taken off the table, which means both teams will have to rely on that Thermite. Of course, the Thatcher will be there to get rid of any wall denial that the defense brings, but you still can bandit trick. And also another thing that is added by the fact that Hibana ban comes out there is it means any hard breach has to be done up close and personal. The Thermite has to go right up to the wall and deploy that exothermic charge, which means he's extra vulnerable to C4s from operators like the Pulse, which we see very commonly on Villa. However, the Valkyrie, what has become a super staple ban here, now that Echo is off the board, banning Valkyrie means you basically don't have to bring IQ, frees up that attacking operator comp a little bit. So I like to see that, and then round it off at the end from Navi with a Wamai ban, which they actually banned last week against Rogue, though that didn't help them in the 7-1 against them. So, I mean, I like what I'm seeing here. Not maybe the most typical ban phase, but still very enjoyable.
I think it makes it very interesting, as you say, and especially when you do look at those hard breaches. Obviously, Shepard's going to be taking on the Thermite, and we're going to have to look for a lot of support from his team. But interesting, actually, obviously not choosing to bring the Thatcher, even though he is available. And this 6th pick coming out from Navi here, Kendrew on the Clash, is not the first time we've seen this. If you think back to their game they played against G2, there was a lot of shield play, and Kendrew was definitely one of those names that popped up as being a shining star in that game. So if this causes a problem for, just looking at the top there, it's actually Na at hashtag 39 semicolon V. That's their new name. If it causes a problem for Navi, then for Empire, I should say, this could be a good start here for Navi, because, well, we all know how much of a pain those shields are to deal with.
No, I really like this, and a great thing that you pointed out, Kendrew, there. In the game last week, where Navi were pretty well dumpstered by Rogue, Kendrew was one of the highest rated players in that whole game. Not just on his team, Kendrew has been popping off. He was also instrumental in the game against G2 as well, but last week an 88% cost in a game where you go 7-1 against you. Cost is a percentage of how many rounds you either get a kill, plant them, or defuse, survive the round, or get traded. I'm actually really impressed by, so far, Kendrew's performance, and I'm hoping that he can be impactful here, and I fully expect him to be here on the Clash in this first defensive round.
Straight away, just going to start things off sitting here in the doorway of the master bedroom. That will obviously mean that if Navi decide to come through and they want to open up that stat wall, they have to be very aware of the fact that that's just sitting right there. You can, of course, get shocked, and it'll make it a lot harder for them to deal with it. Also seeing a lot of presence down here in the basement. Joystick's decided to come straight in. He's going to be droning for himself, just to be sure that there's no one waiting downstairs.
Another thing we didn't quite mention earlier was this mirror pick, another operator that is very commonly banned but snuck through that ban phase. Like to see it here from Panix, another player who's struggled so far since joining Navi to make an impact, but playing a very pivotal operator here. And in fact, on this stat and trophy defense with a very open hold, the strategy with the mirror windows facing the master balcony makes it very difficult for Empire to play inside of master, but it also leaves a gaping hole on the bomb site in which the attackers can exploit. And that's the one where the soft wall is next to the mirror window.
It's basically going to make it incredibly hard for Empire to start to make a move in to these sites, and that's why you're seeing a lot of this presence downstairs. Joystick trying to see what he can get through the floor so he can try and dislodge those players. He's starting to have some presence here in the walk-in closet, and then there's the wall's going to be open, but you have to bear in mind, I think it's Nello who's waiting there in the bathroom for them, ready to push them back should they move in.
I really like that play from Joystick downstairs to use that breaching round from Ashed and shoot the little canister on the mirror window, and that completely changes things for Navi, because no longer do they have an advantageous angle looking into Master, but there's this open window that the attackers, well, they have the superior weapons, they have the ACOGs, they can actually utilize that to their advantage, but a C4 is used to destroy the air jab on the Master doorway, and that allows Kendrew a bit more freedom, but it doesn't seem to matter because Empire do manage to punish Panix there.
That mirror moves very much out the way. This is going to give Empire a little bit more space. I say that, but Scythe is going to be going down as Save secures that kill onto him. So things still at the advantage here for Navi, and you of course have that all-important Clash still standing. The only thing is you have to be aware there's not as much presence here from Navi anymore, so they have to be very aware of what the direction that Empire are looking to get in. Joystick and Shepard, actually, for that matter, saves is really popping off here in this first round, and Navi, it doesn't take them long to secure it for themselves, as Empire were really just held back. They were choked in from moving on forward.
Yeah, really great stuff there from Navi. In particular, Saves did find that 3K onside, and it shows sometimes you don't really have to overcomplicate things. And I was a bit concerned for Navi after that mirror window was opened up. You would have thought Empire had pretty good control, and they did find a pick there as well. But Navi just to hold firm and wait basically for Empire to start exposing themselves, and Saves was very keen on those angles, and he made short work of Empire by the end of it. Another thing to note, I suppose, is that Kendrew, that clash, was never actually actively dealt with by Empire. And I'm a little bit surprised that we're not seeing this Capitao at all picked by them, because Capitao is one of those operators that Empire are so good at, in particular Scyther. He loves it. He loves using that utility. And it was banned against them by G2 when G2 were playing the clash last week on Coastline. So I would have thought that, especially with Navi potentially using that clash, maybe if we go back to that stat bomb site later, I'm hoping Empire are going to bring that Capitao and start to harass that shield a little bit more.
It's actually very interesting that they've decided to switch over to Kali and forego the idea of having a hard breacher. Of course, when you're coming into this site, that means it's going to be hard to open up that laundry wall that you very typically see get reinforced, that Nello's shooting through at the moment. Instead, they're going to be going for the opportunity to get rid of any kind of electrification that's not going to be there. They're also actually not going to be bringing shields either, which you can, of course, use the Kali to get rid of.
Yeah, it's actually funny. Kali is most of the time thought of as a hard breach counter denial, if you will, or hard breach denial counter, like denying all those mute jammers, bandit batteries, electric claws, etc. But that only really matters when you have a hard breach. So I suppose Shepard is either picking it for the gun or picking it for, as you said, those deployable shields, etc. So I'm a bit surprised here from that pick from Empire, but I think if you looked at this operator lineup last season, where you've got an Oryx, an Oryx, a Kali, and a Warden, you'd be thinking, wow, this is, I guess the meta's changed a lot, and indeed it seems like it has. So I'm really enjoying this right now, and I'm keen to see in particular how Kendrew does manage to work that Oryx later in the round. He's actually right near a hatch, in fact. He can pop that with his Bailiff secondary shotgun and jump back up into Master if he wishes late round. He's going to prep that right now, in fact.
The opening kill there also going to Panics. Very similarly to before, as Navi were able to get some of those early kills and put Empire at a disadvantage very early on. It's also going to make it hard if Scyther were to go upstairs and open up the floor, so that Empire be able to have that vision down onto the site, as well as those frag grenades available to them. Well, suddenly now that's not available to the team, and that's going to make it significantly more difficult for them. Here's the use of that Kali, but actually it's not going to last very long. Nello comes straight in with the shotgun. Great shot there, and that means the diffuser is also being dropped. Very hard to recover for Empire, that will be. Always. You can turn things around, but Kendrew's there just to deal with things, and that leaves just Joystick and Always on the side of Empire. Still not much closer from getting into the site. At the very least, the diffuser has been recovered, but they've still got to be aware of everything that's happening here with Navi. And of course, when you do have something like the Mozzie, when you have the Oryx still available, those flanking capabilities are still quite strong.
That proximity alarm does go off there and reveal Joystick's position. He doesn't shoot it, but he does manage to walk outside its radius, and now he's just looking for a pick, hoping that there's a roamer hanging out in mud, and indeed the timing does not benefit Joystick. There you go, Panics finds his second on the round. We're all looking at Always now, the newest player on Empire with low HP, looking to clutch it against 4 players, but he's not even going to get the first one there. Very nice stuff, back-to-back defenses from Navi.
You know, we wondered who it was who was going to have the advantage on this map, if it was going to be very even. And of course, it's still kind of early. Things could change. It wouldn't be the first time that we have seen one team have a very good first half and the other maybe have a very good second half. But so far, it's not looking very good for Empire. And I suspect the fact that they've allowed themselves to even come to this map, it does suggest maybe that they have been practicing it a little bit more. Obviously, everyone kind of knows this is not their favorite map in the entire world. But obviously, when you've gone such a long time trying to avoid it, it is going to set you up to not necessarily be completely ready for it. So now going to Aviator Games, and this is one of those sites where I would argue that it would be one of the most difficult to deal with that Hibana ban, because opening up the study wall when you can't stay really far away would be particularly difficult. You've also got things like the Vigil on the side of Navi, so you're going to have that roaming capability, also denying some of the intel there for Team Empire, and the Goyo shields as well, which is going to make it a lot harder to deal with what is on site. It means you're going to have to use things like the Ash Breach Charge, like the Sophia Lifeline, no longer bringing the Kali, so you won't have that available to you. But I think getting into the site here may be the biggest struggle that Empire have faced so far.
5 seconds left before insertion.
Yeah, and it's funny for Empire, really, because no longer with that Kali, the operator that probably would have been good at countering the Evil Eyes from Maestro, the Vulcan shields from Panics here on the Goyo, but I guess Empire are pretty confident that they already have 6 explosives thanks to Ash, Sophia, and Sledge, so they're probably going to be able to deal with that, especially since the Wamai has been banned out by Navi. So you'd hope that Empire can get rid of all this utility, right? But of course, they have struggled so far. You mentioned this isn't historically a great map for them. In fact, so far in the Russian Major League, they lost it twice to 2 not even Pro League teams in Fours and Crow Crowd. So I'm hoping that Empire have something in the pocket here that we haven't yet seen, because in contrast, Navi had some great performances in the Pro League last season against some formidable opponents like Rogue on this map. So on paper here, Navi should definitely be favored, but Empire, they're on a redemption streak right here, and they need to keep it up. They can't lose maps here to Navi.
I think one of the important things to bear in mind about these two teams is they both have a very similar story. They both came in very quickly to the Pro League scene and found success and fame very early on. In goes those flashes to try and burn the ADSs. But now they're both on a redemption arc, wanting to prove that they can get back to the former glory of both experience. And so whoever takes this map and this series, oh, Panics, run away, you're going to get caught out there. He'll take a decent amount of damage as Joystick does open up the floor there and get rid of one of those shields. But whoever takes this series is going to look significantly closer to redeeming themselves from the kind of fall-off that they've had. Scyther, all right, finally, he's not going to be the first one taken out. Instead, he gets that opening kill with a grenade nonetheless. It's a good start there for Team Empire. Things may be starting to turn around.
Yeah, very much so, and down to find a pick into maps as well. Great vertical play from Scyther previously with that grenade through the floor, and also notably Doki and Nello have been taken really low. Well, Doki's taken out completely. Surely Navi can't salvage this one now. Kendrew and Nello both low HP, both attempting to hold this, and Kendrew knows he needs to make an aggressive play, but he looks the wrong way. Dan punishes him. Surely this isn't a flawless round here for Empire. Not if Nello has something to say about it, but with just about as low HP as you can tolerate. The Maestro here holding the Older with that bullet hose. That plan's going to go down. He's not doing anything about it. He's just playing for the stat pad, it seems. But can't wait forever. Come on. 40 seconds. We want to see you do something. Empire's not going to let him just sit there. The Thermite to breach open the wall. Fully flashed now. Nello. This is not a great spot to be in. And indeed it is the flawless round from Empire.
Look, we've seen Nello do some pretty terrific clutches before. You never knew what to expect, but at that point, Team Empire had completely surrounded him. There was very little he was going to be able to do. I think part of the flaw in Navi's defense there was the fact that they weren't fully prepared for a push in from the north side of the map, so it meant that Empire actually found it a lot easier to move into the site than they maybe would have had that defense been a bit more even. Because if you remember correctly, we saw a couple of shields be put at the top of the main stairs, not just one, and we obviously saw one in Classical Hall as well, because we saw Panics having to run away from it as it got blown up. And so it meant that there was a lot of effort and a lot of attention put there rather than elsewhere, and it sort of gave Empire a little bit more of an easier time moving in. But now returning back to that first site, and this is where Navi found a decent amount of success. It looked almost effortless, but this time they've changed things up with a 6 pick, and no longer will they be bringing the Clash or the Mirror.
Yeah, which telegraphs a completely different strategy, and Empire clearly didn't quite read into that. They didn't predict the 6th pick because Dan decided to 6th pick off of that Zofia and instead bring the Kali, and I presume that that Kali was brought to... Oh, this is actually a toughie. It could be brought because they saw that the Bandit was being picked and they wanted a counter to that wall denial, but it also could be because of the Clash that was 6th pick off of by Kendrew, because Empire, the Kali, the little primary sniper rifle, CRX, whatever it is, one of those rounds will not clash the shield back. So a nice little counter, not the be-all and end-all, not quite as effective as a Capitao. So, oh well, we'll see how this works out for Empire. I have a feeling it's primarily just for that Bandit, but of course, the Kali does not counter the Bandit trick. So if Saves dedicates to that, we might see Empire struggle opening up this wall, especially since there are roamers on the side of Navi, in particular Kendrew, who's playing that Vigil once again.
Well, I am kind of interested, actually, because, of course, you could use Joystick to deal with the batteries, but we saw him get taken down really early on this site before. In goes that air jab, and that could potentially kind of trap Kendrew here, as he's already in Master. But we did see Joystick get taken down early before, and if Navi are anticipating him to be playing down below once again, maybe there'd be the risk of that happening. If you can rely on the Kali to get the wall dealt with, then maybe you don't have to risk the Ashe so much. But he is actually down here in the basement once again. Kendrew will be the first to fall, and he's been a significant player for Navi so far. Disappointing. But if Saves can find Joystick, this would be an interesting potential 1v1. He's just creeping on up the stairs, actually not going to be spending much time down in the basement anymore, but you can tell that he doesn't entirely know where the position of his opponents are.
Well, he would have known that Scyther was downstairs in Laundry because that's where he killed Kendrew, as Kendrew tried to escape Master via the hatch. But, of course, Saves off-site as the Bandit means that he won't be able to Bandit trick the wall by deploying those batteries. My goodness, BattleEye is having a field day. Good on you, BattleEye. See you later, cheaters.
Highest KD we're seeing so far. Joystick's making a really wide rotation here. And because it's such a huge map, it just takes forever. But it's going very, it's taking a lot more time than we saw before. Doki, you see, he's ready and waiting there on the red stairs for any of those potential flanks. There's the impact. And that's going to prevent the wall from being open, but the flash wasn't really able to do anything to prevent that from happening. Frag narrowly missed there. Panix is going to get away with his life, but has lost a decent amount of health. Goomine's going to go down. That will prevent somewhat of a push, and there's less than a minute remaining, so Empire don't have much time to waste, as they have to get this wall open, they have to push in, and they have to try and get that diffuser down.
But not if Panix has to say something about it. Still an impact grenade in hand, and that thermite charge, the exothermic deployed once again. Doku finds a kill off site. Empire, as you said, so low on time, they still haven't gotten the job done. This thermite is not panning out right now. Empire have just about nothing going for them. Even though they've finally taken out some players on the roam, they still haven't breached into the bomb site. Now they'll have to make a very fast rotate to try to execute 3 versus 3, but no time to deal with saves here on the roam. Finds 2, doesn't even need to find a third one. Panix is going to clear that out for him, and there you go, Navi to hold on. Empire looking lost on this attack.
I have to say, Saves is on a complete tear so far. We're only 4 rounds in, and it's not the first time that he's had a multi-kill like that. So having a pretty good day so far. But yeah, it really seems that Empire are struggling with that site in particular, and especially when it's so hard with the denial onto that wall, but also the fact that it's very characteristic of Team Empire to be going in for these very wide roams. We've seen it on a number of different maps. We're seeing it here on Villa. But because Navi know what to anticipate in those situations, they know to expect that. They're prepared for them. And that means that they're bringing down those members of Team Empire. And once you get to that kind of late round where you're wanting to be able to apply more pressure, because it's so hard to breach onto the site, you need to get in and try and plant the diffuser. Well, suddenly you're so much weaker because you're lacking a lot of that firepower that would be really useful in those situations.
So Empire, we're looking at you now thinking, when is this going to change a little bit? Navi's been doing really nicely here on their defensive side. Of course, there was that one flawless round from Empire, and it's quite funny, really, when the only round Empire have won has been a decisive win, and of course, that was on Aviator. So eventually, even if Navi do win this round, they'll have to reattempt Aviator, or they'll have to go over and try out Living Library, which I would love to see, but I just guess it ain't happening. But if we go back and talk about the previous time that Navi defended this bomb site kitchen and dining, Empire brought the Kali instead of that Thermite. They've changed it back to their original operator lineup with that Thermite back on board, and I think that's definitely going to support a much more effective attack, in particular if they try to go for a pantry push again, because the Thermite can open up the pantry wall just through that window where Shepard opening up. It will really enable Empire to dislodge a lot more of those anchor positions and not just fall victim into that choke point that is the pantry doorway into kitchen. So hopefully we see something a bit more from Empire here, maybe a bit of a roam clear vertically as well, opening up holes onto the bomb site to dislodge those anchors. And hey, I totally believe they can make it happen.
It does make you wonder if, kind of similar to what you were saying on that last round, if the reason they bought the Kali the first time is because they were expecting Navi to consistently and repeatedly bring her on each of their defenses, which they evidently didn't do. So now they've chosen not to. But Saves, I mentioned before, he's on a bit of a tear. He's going to bring down Always very early. Don't know if he was able to get all of those air jabs down, but regardless, the loss of that Nomad will be felt by the attacking team. Now they've just got to try and make their way in, and as you say, likely going to come in for this vertical push, which they struggled with before. Oof. Okay, one going down from each side. They get two there for Empire. Scyther joins the fray. That leaves just Shepard and Dan remaining. You do have the hard breacher, and he is carrying the diffuser, so that's still on the side here for Team Empire. But with just half the round remaining, it's going to be a pretty big ask. The wall there does get open, but Dan's trying to take in those angles, not entirely knowing where his opponents may be, and he's going against four of them. One of them's going to get him eventually, and it's going to be Doki. He's having a lot more of an improvement. Now, you've got to remember this pulse here can use the cardiac sensor to feed that information over to his team. Is it going to catch Shepard out? Maybe catches out one of the members there of Navi, but he's not going to let it finish him off entirely. Instead, he has to figure out an alternate route in.
One drone in the pocket, plenty of time, but against four, come on, like what's really possible here? Yes, against threes may be possible, but you mentioned Saves, still alive, and has been turning up the heat for Navi. Shots exchanged back and forth. Shepard, this is really just a consolation round, even if he can't get this victory, this clutch. Hopefully he can find a few kills to build back the confidence, because that has been the story here for Navi. They've been doing away what they want with Empire, and there's been no retaliation successful at all. You see how much Saves wants that kill, throwing out the impact grenade as well to boot. Shepard, give it your best. You've lit up two of the players, but Saves for another one. He seems to be unstoppable here for Navi. And now we look to the final round of Empire's attack for them to hopefully redeem themselves.
You'd hope that they would have the opportunity to be able to, and I'd say it's likely we're going to go back to AV. Yep, you said you were hoping maybe for Living Room Library, but obviously very unlikely that would happen. Now, so far, this is the only site that they've had any luck in attacking. And they are going to be bringing back that same composition that they did before, and they were able to secure it on a flawless. They came in, they surrounded the defending team, they got rid of the utility very quickly, and they were able to make them move in. And it was just Nello, I believe, remaining on the Maestro at the end, and he actually let the defuse go down, and when he was trying to catch those angles to see if he can catch any of those members of Empire at the end, he wasn't particularly successful. So I'm going to be very interested to see how it is that Navi decide to adapt their defense on this site. As I mentioned before, they had a lot of focus of placing much of their utility on the kind of south side of this map. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was Scyther who got the first kill before with the frag grenade. And you have to remember, with the Wamai band, that means that things like that are potentially more likely to happen. And we saw much of those, many of those ADSs also down here on the south side of the map. So it means that you're leaving yourself kind of open a bit more. But you can already see the reinforcement here on the study wall is different to how they did before.
Attackers' objective is Locate a bomb.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up that Wamai ban, because I think that the fact that that has been banned is part of the reason why Navi has changed their strategy here on that defense on the anchor. Instead of bringing the Maestro with the 2 Evil Eyes, the Goyo with the 3 deployable shields, two Vulcan shields now. Instead of kind of going for that, okay, heavy utility, forcing the attack to soak that up and use all their utility on it, that kind of very much on-meta playstyle, Navi are like, okay, let's just keep playing into our aggression. It's worked so far. We'll play the Mozzie instead of the Goyo. We'll deny some drones. We'll keep playing that Vigil, which has been in all but 1 round so far for Navi, and see if our aggression can get the better of Empire. But I like this, the adaptations from Empire. Dan safe outside this window to open up an angle, and he actually gets a pre-fire through the wall. No doubt a good read based on a call out from a drone, and that'll get the first kill in the way of Empire. Of course, remember last time Empire attacked this, they found 3 picks within not very much time and then overwhelmed the objective. And it seems to be that perhaps Empire is having just as much success now.
Well, we saw that drone of always just lingering around here towards where Kendrew is situated. So if Empire can get the intel of Kendrew's location while he's not using his gadget, that could be pretty key. So far, not seeing much as far as getting up towards him. But there is that presence from Empire down here on the bottom floor. Joystick's going to be moving on up, and actually Dan's going to be the one to get the next kill. Nello will be falling. He was the last one remaining on Navi in the last round, and as you mentioned, a lot of those operators are the same, so also that same anchor positioning on the Maestro as he was before.
Really good control here for Empire, but of course the situation on Study is quite different to what you might expect, as that wall has been opened, so Shepard not likely to breach that one. Control of 90 is Panex, and to take out one of the drones there, being flashed out, pushed backwards, but the onus here is on Empire to actually have an execute ready now, because they don't have control of Study, they can't breach one of these walls, and they don't seem to be taking control of the north side of the map. 35 seconds left, but that's another opening, and if Empire can keep running away with this numbers advantage, it might spell the round for Empire. Now 5 versus 2, and Dan is on a tear. He gets shut down there by Panex. A very nice shot from the Swiss player, but 2 versus 4 for Navi. Just 15 seconds left for Empire on this push, and there you go. Panex shut down. Plant getting forced onto the ground, and it's all on Kendrew. The information isn't there. He denies the diffuser. He just has to survive for 7 seconds. He finds another one, but Empire don't let him get away with murder. And that is Empire to finally salvage that half and end it at a 2-4.
Brutal there from Kendrew, just waiting in the corner, and Empire not knowing where his position was. Great for him to be able to secure that kill, but obviously it wasn't enough. And Empire 2 at the half, as you say, will now be switching on over to the defense. This team, who aren't particularly used to this map and aren't particularly fond of this map, now have to figure out how they're going to live up to those defenses that were put up by Navi. They're going to straight away be going for something slightly different to how Navi did on this site. They are opting to go for that Maestro. No. Oh, no. They are opting to go for the Maestro and the Ella, but as you just nodded towards there, that would be Kendrew appearing on the Monty, because of course, why not? He's been showing up on the Shield so far this season, especially this week. Of course, why wouldn't he be doing it once again? And I mean, I guess when you can't rely so much on those hard breaching opportunities because the Havana and the Maverick are both banned, you might as well just use the brute force that you can with the Monty. Protect some of those other players on your team, and with the IQ as well, you'll be able to find some of that utility, some of that gadgetry that has been so there for the defensive side.
5 seconds left before insertion.
Yeah, look, let's address this one thing at a time. Let's go with the defense first and talk about the strategy that Empire intends to employ here. And it's the similar strategy that Navi wanted to use on their first defensive aviator, and that is the utility soak meta. So you've got 2 Evil Eyes, 2 Goyo shields, a deployable shield on Scyther, none on Always, but that is so much utility to try and soak up, establish strong positions that is very difficult for Navi to flush out. Now, with the Wamai band, it makes it a bit more difficult for Empire to protect all that. They're just relying on those 3 ADSs from Joystick, which will be pivotal. But of course, Navi have tons of utility to chew through those ADSs and then destroy all of the util that Empire has brought. But more importantly, okay, wow, that's a Vulcan destroyed really early. A bit of a surprise there. But what I was going to say is, more importantly, Navi have Monty, which is kind of a cheap way of dealing with all of this utility. You can brute force choke points much more effectively, but of course, it is that double-edged sword. Kendrew doesn't really have a viable weapon for one-on-ones. He might be able to get a sneaky kill with the P9 here or there, but if it comes down to raw gunfights and a numbers advantage, Empire will definitely be at the forefront. Now, looking at how Navi has taken control so far, really great map control take from the north side in contrast to the south side take we saw from Empire, and also dismantling that first Evil Eye. I'm liking this really early presence and control from Navi.
Yeah, Navi have pushed up pretty aggressively. You already see Doki being droned in here by Kendrew, and you've got Mello repelling on the window as well. So Scyther and Dan, who are sitting here at the corridor, they have to be aware of that and start to push in. That's going to get the shield. There you go. You hear it exploding. Wow. And so already Navi have had a pretty swift effort at being able to get rid of some of this utility. This is where they're going to have to decide how they're going to move that in. Seeing this wide roam here by Joystick, very beginning to move into the site. He's just lingering here in the doorway, but he's going to have to be very aware of the presence of that Monty. Well, Doki, he's going to be opening things up. On to Dan. That's that Goyogon. Navi being very aggressive here.
Yeah, and Doki has been so impactful this round. He took out the first Evil Eye, took out the second Vulcan shield, and now Empire, all that stack of utility that I mentioned is really just dwindling away. And Joystick on that roam is taken out as well. He was that X factor for Empire to try and deny plant from downstairs, but that's taken off board. Now Empire, I think if Always goes for this aggressive peak up towards 90, he's going to lose it to Doki. Okay, never mind. Always says, never mind you, Dev. I do what I want. And now Empire have pulled something back at least a little bit. But okay, no, maybe a bit more than a little bit. The plant's going down from Kendrew, however, and Always is eventually shut down after he finds Nello to hold it. But Scyther on the flank. It's a 1v2 now. This is very possible for the LR, but caught in the crossfire. Taken out. It was such a textbook push from Navi. Empire did their best, but Navi just too good on that one.
An absolutely heartbreaking death for Maestro, who threw in both of his impacts to try and disrupt the diffuser going down from the Monty, and of course with the shield in the way, it wasn't able to get him. That allowed it to go down, and suddenly all these very aggressive crossfires, and Navi Empire found themselves in disadvantage and weren't able to hold their own at the end. It looked like it was so close there, and that Empire really had a chance, especially after those great shots there from Always, which, you know, I'll be honest, I was with you. I thought might not work out in their favor. But moving here on to Trophy Factory, this is the site that Navi were able to make very well when they were on their own defense. So once again, we are seeing the approach a little bit different from Empire. They're going to be bringing in the Oryx on Scyther on Oryx. So once again, we will be able to have those kind of flanking capabilities there. But we're also seeing his counterpart in Yana be played by Kendrew. Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen the Yana get employed on this map. In fact, Vitality were using quite a bit when they came here to Villa. And you can basically use her as this human drone. The problem is they're going to have to face the fact that there is a mute on the side of Team Empire who has some of the intel that they tried to gather using her.
Yeah, great point there about the mute, and if Always is putting these primarily on the south side of the map, which is where he's setting up currently, I expect that will indeed, there you go, one in classical hallway. It'll make it much more difficult for Kendrew to push up, especially if Navi opts to go for a map control take, as they did in the previous round. But let's have a look at where the attack are shaping up. A couple players spaced around, but it does seem to be primarily on the east side, or more so directly hitting Master, and maybe a bit of a vertical take. Yeah, indeed. Look at this. I love this time management here from Navi. Already Doki's ready and in. He's droning a little bit himself, setting up a pre-place, but also he's got two of his teammates droning in for him, and no doubt some calls on what's already been cleared. Now, Doki and Nello to enter together. Nello, with his electronics detector, can scan out where all this util is on site, in particular those mute jammers and those lesion mines, and there you go. That's an ADS taken out nice and early. Also detecting the bomb there. sees some utility now in Bathroom and Astro. And of course, if there's any players lodged in these soft floor areas on the bomb site, Doki can also disrupt that floor and start to find picks through that as well.
If Empire don't have a decent enough road here, then this down here from Navi is going to be interrupted. So that means that things like the frag grenades on the side of Yana in the hands of Kenju will be able to be used if those ADSs are taken out as efficiently as we've so far seen from Nello. Always is waiting down at the bottom of the red stairs here. So if Doki isn't aware of where he is, then he could find himself getting caught out. But the question is whether or not that will be before or after they get their job done. But always clear that up. He's having a pretty good game so far. This new player you mentioned earlier, who we've really been looking to put his name on the board, this could be the opportunity. Joystick also downstairs now in Mudroom. He's just trying to hold on to the tactical because he, of course, knows there are still members of Navi downstairs. That'll be just trying to open things up. He's going to be rotating back out now that he's done his job.
Yeah, I like this from Empire. They're just playing around, ready for Navi to start exiting Kitchen, but I like this. Navi have made a safe rotation through the pantry, but Snyder says that's maybe not so safe. The hole through the floor is going to finish him off, and Empire in such a strong position now. 5v2, make that a 4v2, and Joystick on for the flank. At the bottom Astro stairs, he finds Panics now all on saves. He may well have a free entry into site, but it won't be so free once he's walking through a crossfire against 4 players from Empire. Look, even though you got 30 seconds here and 1 breaching charge, I don't see this being possible. Saves is basically just going to be doing that for now, saving as time ticks on. And Empire wait with their guns. Look at the players close in when that Kumine gets stepped on. And Dan, well, he's the one to close it out. It was a good round from the start, with always opening up with that first frag onto Doki, and I guess closed out by Empire as well.
I think one of the huge problems that Navi made in that round is when Doki and Nello were starting to move towards the Astro stairs upstairs. You saw Nello using his drone so that they could check the it, but they didn't actually drone out where Joystick was there in the mudroom. So that meant that Joystick knew that they were coming. Scyther managed to get that shot in through the floor, but also when you saw the players spending time around that area, Joystick could just jump out and get in that final kill. And it was a little bit of an oversight there from Navi because they didn't do that kind of thorough droning there, weren't necessarily aware of Joystick's exact position. That really enabled some of that aggression in the mid-round from Empire that put them in that position at the end where it was just safe remaining on Navi. But now, returning to Aviator, Empire obviously didn't win this round last time they came, so they do have the opportunity to come back. They are going to be playing very similar composition to before, so it's going to be all about how they utilize and apply the utility that they have available to them, rather than bringing new utility altogether.
Yeah, in fact, the exact same operator lineup for Empire, but now that they've seen Navi do this northside take-in through Master, it was super efficient last time, with 1 minute 50 still on the clock, so that's 1 minute and 10 seconds into the round. Doki had already taken control all the way up to landing and destroyed the 90, the Evil Eye placed at 90, and the default camera for that matter, with his breaching round. So good stuff from Navi on the previous one, but it seems like maybe Empire is going to change their attack a little bit. I really hope they put a bit more presence around that map control so it's not so free for Navi, but it seems like that is in fact not the case so far. And with Panics already on Head's window, basically any chance of Empire trying to re-roam is already gone. Doki's in Master as well already, and it seems like this is more free real estate for Navi.
You can tell that Empire are trying to put a lot of stock in preventing that push as they get closer to the site, and I'm very interested to see what it is that Joystick does, because he did get caught out quite, early in the last time. He is downstairs. Okay, unsurprising. That's where he's been spending a lot of the time on his rooms before, and that is where he's been caught out. And you mentioned how the way that Navi are positioned and the way they've been able to take space so far will make it very hard for the roam to deal with that. So whether or not Joystick will be able to find the value that he's looking for is kind of another question entirely. Yeah, in comes the Monty. We saw him actually lingering very early in the aviator door before. And Doki, once again, very similar placement to where he was last time. He was able to just use those breach charges to take down that shield. It looks like that's exactly what he's going to be doing again now. Oh, in goes the flashes, getting rid of those ADS. And there are actually 2 in the doorway. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Nice spot there. And in fact, the second ADS there that was not burnt removes the last breaching round from Doki. So, of course, we still have the lifeline explosives from saves, which could be used to deal with that second Vulcan shield. But it seems like maybe Navi are just going to fake out the execute for now. That's one smoke to deny those lines of sight. Shepard trying to get that angle, but of course always just responds with a gas of his own. The second one just deployed there, as you would have heard from that sound cue, the gas bait. Saves primarily just going from that study side. The second and final smoke grenade from Kendrew goes out, and he's going to try and plant in the doorway. Couple pre-fires from Empire, but oh no, you've got to pick it up. There you go. Kendrew finally gets it. He's not in the gas, so he can start to plant here, but he is struggling, and now Always and the rest of Empire are going to get that sound cue. It's all on Nello to cover, but the C4 deals with him. The plant does go down, though, with a Monty alive in a post-plant. Even though this is a 3v5, it's very much doable here to hold on to for Navi.
This is where you're actually seeing these angles be shared, but there goes Scyther getting 1 and 2. He's starting to clean up Navi.
Wow.
The disable is going down. It looks like Always going to be able to get it, and that'll be the round going to Team Empire, who, despite the fact that Navi were being aggressive in their push in, they wanted to get in there nice and early to make that plant. Team Empire were just in the perfect position to all swarm in, collapse onto that diffuser, and take the round back for themselves.
That was just beautiful. I mean, I mentioned that despite the numbers disadvantage, Navi are actually in a pretty good position. And that would have been the case if Kendrew had been able to hold off those players. Now, I didn't quite see it. I'd have to watch the replay to be sure. But I have a feeling there wasn't much utility used from Empire to dislodge that Monty. And you'd think, all right, Kendrew, if he has the extended shield and he just sits in that doorway, he can just block off the defenders from passing through and trying to take out his teammates, and then he can just move back so that his teammates can kill the person who's on the disable for that diffuser. But I have a feeling maybe an Elamine, a Grismot, was used to knock back Monty's shield for just a moment, and Empire overwhelmed the Montaigne and took him out. Not quite sure about that one. Would have to go and watch the replay, but however they did it, Empire to come back in a 5 versus 3 with a plant down is really impressive. So props to Empire for holding that down.
Yeah, that was really great. And now here they're going to be coming to Kitchen and Dining for their first time defending it. And they've brought the quadruple C4. We did see Dan get a pretty good C4 there in that last round, but they'll have 4 times the opportunity to be able to do that this time. Evidently anticipating Navi to come and try and take a vertical take down onto the kitchen. And so we'll be looking to take advantage of that approach.
I think they're definitely going to be hinging on Dan to try to get that information. Maybe a bit of Shepard with those hacked drones from the Mozzie, but primarily looking at Dan with the cardiac sensor, who's actually using it right now to just suss out the situation, see anyone on the roof and where are they rotating to. And of course, he can call out to his teammates where those players are if they're standing on soft floor. And you mentioned 4 C4s. I mean, that's just so many opportunities for Empire to take out the Navi players through the floor. But we'll see how Navi decides to attack this. For now, it seems like they're clearing out the south side of the map thanks to Panix's drone there. And also, downstairs, early presence here in Living from Saves, now pushing in through Mud. I love this LMG on the Zafir, something we've seen by a few Pro players in the past. Really packs a punch, and of course, with 150 rounds in the package there, you don't ever have to reload. And I mean, that's very, very nice.
I mean, it's pretty great because it takes about 3 years to reload this particular weapon. I mean, as with any of the LMGs, but it'll be interesting to see if he actually manages to get a decent number of kills and dealing some nice damage with it. There's some of that utility being expended there, just being dealt. And Dan, as you say, using the cardiac sensor, of course, to be passing on this intel to the rest of his team. Now, it's interesting seeing this presence from Shepard and Joystick upstairs. Obviously, they're up here on the roam, and they want to be looking out for these players from Navi, but it means that Shepard particularly, well, okay, joystick. He's going to get traded out there by Nello, but it was a nice kill to see. Actually, Saves joining on. So both of those two roamers have gone down. And I was going to say that having Shepard upstairs, while yes, you can provide that roaming capability, you also kind of relinquish the ability to use the C4 onto the ceiling. It's something that we've seen him do very well, particularly going back to the game they played against Rogue, but it won't be there any longer. And Dan's C4 has been used. So if Always isn't... Okay, he still has his. I don't know if Scyther still has his. Okay, there we go. So there's still two here on the side of Empire. So not all hope is lost from that perspective, but it's definitely a disappointment to have lost those two roamers. And now you've also lost your pulse. There's a lot of your intel gone. Doki's going to be going down by Always, and he's very low on HP. Tosses in the C4. Scyther, he gets one for himself. So now it's a 2 versus 2. Make that a 2 versus 1, as once again it's just Saves remaining. There's that LMG. So many bullets in the magazine, and many of them will be going into Always. That leaves just Scyther remaining. In goes the lifeline. Sending in the stuns, blowing up what he can. And at the very end, he's going to be able to blow up Scyther as he goes down and Navi secure themselves the round.
You love to see that. Save says, look, you can take out my teammates, not a worry at all. I had a good first half, and I'm going to have a good second half here to clutch it up with the Zafir LMG. Really impressive stuff from the Polish player there of Saves. Overall, Navi, I mean, to be frank, I thought that, yes, their run clear was pretty good. They took out the 2 players, but they lost their Buck in the meanwhile. And the Buck being that player that's going to be opening up most of the floor, like, yes, you've got breaching charges, but you're a bit more exposed. It takes a bit longer to deploy those than the skeleton key, so you're a bit more vulnerable to the C4. But on top of those 2 picks, for Doki to push through China aggressively, even though there was no one to refrag him, and he did actually get traded out by the defense, him finding that other pick there meant that Navi was still in a pretty strong numbers advantage. By the end of it, though, a 2 versus 3, I think it was, for Empire, and in particular, Always to hold down that fort in Dining, to take out the 2 players that pushed in through Laundry. That was just so pivotal for Empire. Put it into a 2v1, but then, you know, there's just Saves, and he's nuts. So you lose. That's it.
Well, obviously, it's on match point here, so Navi, all they have to do is get this one last round, and they secure the series for themselves. But this is a site that Empire were able to defend pretty definitively the last time we came here. Back on round 8, Navi weren't even able to get the plant down. So unlike round 9, where they did get the plant and things got turned around, we went into the post-plant, Empire were able to secure themselves a disable. It was a different story when we were last on this site. So if Empire can recreate what happened before, well, then they should have a pretty good time at being able to drag out that match point and hopefully secure themselves the draw, as that's pretty much the best they can go for now.
Yep, good point. EUL does have draws, so best of 12 rounds with no overtime. Navi have secured 1 point on the standings for tonight, which is not all that they'll be bargaining for, I bet. Navi have played so well today here against Empire. I bet they're on for the full redemption to rack away 3 points from the match tonight, especially after getting dumpstered last week. So we're looking at Navi and saying, okay, once again, this vertical take. As you mentioned, Empire successfully defended Staten Trophy last time, primarily thanks to Always starting it off with a nice pick onto Doki downstairs, and of course, Joystick as well with that flank below. But now that Navi have read into this playstyle a little bit more, read into where the Empire players are located, I think that'll help them a little bit. They're a bit more cautious of this re-roam attempt. What I'd really like to see is after Navi have dealt with a lot of this utility through the floor, they just rotate up and go for a primarily master-centric push. If they've cleared out a lot of these positions, they should be pretty comfortable pushing through areas like bathroom, as long as you've got a drone or a single player downstairs to watch for those C4s on that re-roam from Empire.
Yeah, I mean, we did see those members of Navi get caught out before, as I mentioned how Nello was going about his droning. And actually, you see Panix is doing a lot of the droning in for Doki and Nello down here on the first floor instead. There goes that Ash breach charge, and Saves is going to be opening things up with a kill onto Joystick. That was that key roamer that we've been looking out for quite a bit, and he was able to get a lot of value the last time they're on this site. So with him gone, that gives Doki and Nello significantly more space as they do their work down here on the bottom floor. Always waiting up here at the top of Red Stairs, but he's probably going to get droned out by Saves unless, yeah. No, they know exactly where he is now, so that makes it significantly more difficult. Dan and Always going to be falling.
Damn.
It's pretty easy here for Navi. Scyther, he turns things around slightly, but does get traded out, and half a minute remaining. Shepard, he's going to be dropping down after securing himself a kill onto Nello. 3 versus 1, and Shepard might have the opportunity to take down these players, but there we go. There's the diffuser going down, as suddenly he's got himself in a situation where he has to get rid of it himself. All these other 2 members of Navi have to do is separate themselves out, form potentially a crossfire where they can take Shepard fairly easily, and it's going to be a pretty easy round for them. And okay, there you go. I was going to say, if they can secure it, they are going to take the win. That's exactly what they do, as Saves goes straight through into Shepard, and that will be a 7-4 for Navi.
Back in form, it seems, after an embarrassing 7-1 against them last week. Navi get their heads back in the game. Doki has awoken once again, back on entry. Get him off the thermite and he'll get the job done. Gotta say, Saves really did impress me that game, though, and it's not just because he had the most kills on his team, but so many impactful moments. I also want to credit Kendra. He may have gone negative and only gotten 2 kills, but those Monty plays and the way that they work together as a team was absolutely pivotal for Navi to take that one. And Empire, maybe a bit disappointing 2 weeks now. They're going to go back to the drawing board and hope they can figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, even when you look back to Pro League, Empire were able to beat Navi both Playdays in the last season. So this will be a nice turning of the tables there for Navi. And I mentioned how, of course, they wanted their own redemption arc, and this is the start of it. And obviously, Doki and Saves really showing up. But I'm interested to know what our analysts think, because I think there's quite a bit to break down.
Thanks so much, James and Gio. Yes, what a game.